Okay, so this is an interesting starting we've got from West. West is very TS heavy on the top, while East is very TS heavy on the south, so that's going to be an interesting game. We do have Captain John up the top there, so that's going to be interesting. Okay, game starting here. So what we've got here is a very offensive line, so potentially Mighty Sheep is just going to eco. So I wouldn't expect that. Yeah, it looks like Groupies going to meet shield for Mighty Sheep. Well, this side is going to be very vulnerable, having to kill on the front line here. He looks like he's played a reasonable amount before, so it's hard to gauge exactly what's going to be going on. First comments I'd make here with DMDR starting is like, this laser turret here, you don't want to build that early. Like, the enemy doesn't even have their factory yet, let alone a scout that will be able to come and hit your base. So that laser turret is very much a waste. Also, just the idling here is pretty bad. The other thing you probably want to do is you probably want to start at this back metal extractor and build them towards the front, and then place the factory further forward. The further forward, the closer the factory is to the front line, the less distance your units have to walk, and so it's a more opportune position. So there are a couple of approaches you can take to this initial build here. Firstly, you can rush for this metal extractor, or what you can do alternatively is get a constructor on the factory and then send your commander straight away towards the front line. Then you get out a second constructor, then you start getting your grunts out towards the front line. That has the benefit of getting the commander out sooner in order to secure metal, and because the grunts are fast, they get out at a reasonable pace anyway. So you don't it's not like you're going to lose a ton of time with getting those grunts to the front line to defend it. And grunts are probably a good first option, considering that the weaker player in the front line is probably going to need extra support. And so getting those grunts out and standing them at the front is just going to make that a little bit more secure. It seems to be decent enough to keep the commander at the factory though, and to put out these grunts. So there's also that. Also, I'd say that if you're going to be putting out these grunts at such a rapid pace so early, you really don't need this laser tower, because these grunts are fully capable of sealing this off. Another consideration to make in terms of just base layout in eco, later in the game you're going to be going at Tech 2 you're going to be going for fusions, etc. So you're likely going to be wanting to reclaim these wind generators in order to put up the T2 eco eventually. So if you build those wind generators and all your economy right in one place, that's more advantageous in terms of reclaiming that. Yeah. So that your build power is all concentrated on one place. Sorry, just one sec. I appear to have lost control of the camera. So with this combat here, this is kind of cool because you're dealing with things outside. Initially they were dealing with things outside the commander range, but once you're dealing with the commander range, you sort of don't have enough units to deal with the commander. Also, you want to keep a very close eye on what Bing is doing with his army. So you don't want to be, you want to ideally be attacking with Bing. For example, you could have followed him through here and taken out this entire base. Likely Bing will manage that. And so here you can see attacking with Tequila has managed to take out the commander. Although it won't. One shot and it's dead. Yeah. So this is okay. What I'd probably say here, regarding economy, I'm probably going to focus on economy mainly this game. You see how you're accessing energy at this point. When you're accessing energy, if you're looking for a stable energy source, build advanced solars because they are far more efficient in terms of metal. Also, once you're accessing energy and stalling on your metal, yeah, you're going to want to reclaim those solar collectors. One final thing you're going to want to do at this point. You've just taken out the front line. You've taken out Goopy's base and done a lot of damage there. So this is the opportune time to tech. The enemy's on their back foot, which means they're not going to be able to engage. And you're likely going to be having Tech 2. Yeah, here we go. We've got Tech 2 immediately coming out from Mighty Sheep here. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see Tech 2 coming out from, if not this back spot over here, you're going to see Tech 2 coming out potentially from the Techers. This game, the Techers are units on the front line. So what that's going to mean is that the instant you make that breakthrough and you've got that military advantage, you want to quit throwing out. So all these Tech 1 units that you've built after the res spots, they're useless, they're wasted, they're pretty much just going to die to enemy Tech 2. So what you do is you get your res bots, where 4 is probably too many, but that's fine. And then you reclaim everything and you go T2 immediately. Part of what you do with going T2, you reclaim the factory, you reclaim the laser tower, and you reclaim the basic solars for... And if you still need the energy, instead of reclaiming those basic solars, like build an advanced solar, then reclaim the solars, then build the T2, and you'll get that extra metal for that. Yeah. The other thing to note, when you make like a breakthrough on the front line and you've got frontline supremacy, stop building aggravators and rocket bots generally. They're too slow. Once your front line's pushed forward, you've got all this extra distance to push out there. Like, they haven't even made it to the front line yet. Potentially, if you went T2 fac earlier and pushed out a few pyro, they would already be on the front line right now. And then, yeah, what I'd probably do there is push back, bring your grunts forward to push back his army, get that reclaim, and then pull back as soon as the pyro come in, because you're very much outgunned by the pyro. So try to stay in the cover of these laser towers, and don't attempt to fight the pyro with your T1. It's just not going to work. Another thing I'd say here is, in interests of ecoing faster, what I do again is don't build those wind generators out there. Build those wind generators over here, and what I'd probably do at this point is I'd build advanced solars, and I'd get a few of them up. If you're energy stalling, get a few of them up before you build these metal extractors. Also for build power, instead of building a Twitcher, which is 125 build power, I'd probably build a couple T1 construction bots. That gives you significantly more build power for only slightly more expensive. A Twitcher has a really high energy cost as well, and you're not going to have the extra energy at this point in the game. The other thing to note is that Twitchers can build fiends. So what I usually do when I get a Tech 2 K-bot factory is I'll build my Tech 2 constructor, and then I'll immediately build a metal storage, and then reclaim the factory, and then build the metal extractors. That'll allow you to scale up your build power, get a fusion, while potentially also building pyro fiends. The other thing at this point, apart from these aggravators being a little too far back, just being once you've got your fiends coming in and covering the front line, if you do have leftover Tech 1 units, don't use them. Don't even try to use them. What you do is reclaim them for the extra metal, so you can push out what you would 4 aggravators would give you another 2 fiend, which I'd expect to have a lot higher health. Let's compare them. You'd be getting lower range, sure. 4 aggravator is 164 damage per second. 2 fiend is 480 damage per second. We can see that down there. And so that would be 440 metal, and the fiend would be 400 metal. So you'd make a little bit off that too. So yeah, it would be very much advantageous to reclaim those. Probably if you kept your res bots around your grave robbers, you could use them to reclaim your aggravators and have that extra metal. Yeah. The other thing you can do with if you are using Twitches for build power, before you walk this constructor up here, you can potentially start a fusion reactor, and because the Twitches are faster, they can spend some time building the fusion reactor. Then when this constructor gets up there and builds the metal extractor, then you can go and finish the metal extractor. Then you can come back, and because they spend less time waiting for the Tech 2 constructor to get between the two positions, it's just a bit more efficient. Yeah. And so in terms of whether you should be building Fiend at all at this point, I reckon it's the right call to be building Fiend. You have some light defenses, but the enemy does have a significant military force, and you're the only one with significant military and ability to build military, because Bing has gone full eco, so it's probably appropriate to go full military for a bit to cover Bing's focus on resources. Yeah. So yeah. Right now it's just get a bunch of units out on the front line, and just hold your position. I would probably say at this point, at least with the win generation this high, you have enough energy production to jump straight to a fusion. But if you're going to be using this extra energy generation to reclaim the basic solas, that's probably appropriate. But you don't need the extra energy, and it's really just slowing you down. Keep an eye on conversion as well when you're building energy, because you could be having an extra 3 or 4 metal a second. Yeah. This is good here. Just keep in mind that you've got the dragon's teeth in between you and where you want to retreat to. So if Mighty Sheep had been more proactive, he could have caught you against the dragon's dragon's teeth, and yeah, that wouldn't have been great for you. Now here, because again we've got what you want to do with Arsenal pushing forward with the gunslingers. What you want to do is you want to bring up your fiends and keep them with the gunslingers. Just keep that protection. The other thing you want to be very aware of is all the reclaim that's just lying around on the battlefield at the moment that no one's taking advantage of. The other thing you want to be very conscious of is as soon as you go T2, there's probably gonna be mines on the battlefield. People don't use mines as much as they should, but what you want to do is firstly, the instant one mine blows up, you want to get back, and then you want to build maybe something like AK, a grunt, and you want to use the grunt to scout ahead of your fiends so they hit the mines and you lose less resources on that. Or what I tend to do is I tend to just sit and eco a bit, maybe build my own mines, and then once you've got a little bit of eco, build a Juno. Junos do cost a bit of resources to load. It's actually a relatively significant amount, so I probably wouldn't go for a Juno until you've got a fusion. But once you've got a fusion, Juno is fair game. You'll have enough resources to outweigh the extra drain that loading the Juno will be. The other thing that a Juno can do is it can deal with radar and jumbots like this over here. Yeah. So what I would be doing now, so the enemy has just been leashed, and this looks like game over because everyone's just quit. What I'd probably be doing, once you see, okay, there are two ways you can go here. You've got a leash has been done and basically taken out all their eco. The response to that is focus 100% on resources. Stop building this anti-air. Stop building these advanced solars. Everything on your factory and just get out the units. The enemy's dead. Just finish up the game. Even if the enemy wasn't dead, you don't want to give them time to rebuild. Just capitalize on the fact that they're basically just being killed. Their top players have just resigned. That's the perfect moment to just full on put all the pressure on them, and they can just crumble in periods like that. Yeah, you really don't need to be putting this extra into your advanced solar generation right now. But what I would advise doing, say, if the leash only brought you back to parity eco with the enemy or something like that, like, because you only have like a few fusions between the team, maybe they've got a attacker which has, I don't know, a couple advanced fusions at this point. What you should probably do is not put out any army and just eco. And just, I mean, if everyone did this, then there's no real gain to ecoing, because if everyone's equally ecoing, but the hope with ecoing is that the enemy doesn't eco. And so what you want to do is you want to eco just, if you want to only put as much into defending yourself as possible, because defending is more efficient, and then you want to eco with the rest of what you've got. And if you do that right, providing the enemy pressures you and they're not efficient with it, you should out eco the enemy. And then once you've got a slight eco advantage, that turns into a large eco advantage. And once you've got a large eco advantage, you can start actually destroying them, and working against the defender's advantage, basically. So yeah, kind of an anticlimactic game. I'd have liked to see a game that went on for longer, and so you could more see the consequences of decisions like throwing so much into units, the way you ecoed, how that compared to the enemy. But yeah, plenty to talk about, and there's that with that replay. Okay. Yeah, looks like this game is taking time to finish up because there are just so few units on the front. Because again, like, you're putting resources into this fusion. What we've got there now is that's about 15 Fiend that you could have on the front line. He does have like 28, but like, if everyone was putting units on the front line, instead of building a fusion, or if you add, say, the metal that you've put into these advanced solars that you didn't entirely need, because again, you've got a bunch of converters on, that can all be going into fiends, which can be on the front line. You've got reclaiming as well to put out that extra. Yeah. You can build an army. The other thing you can do, artillery is generally a better option in a team game. A higher emphasis on artillery. And here's the reason for it. Artillery is longer range. So the benefit of artillery being longer range is you can stay further back where your allies' units are and still fire at the enemy. When you've got shorter range units, they have to go all the way out, and so you're more likely to end up in a hanging situation like this, for example, where Tequila's army was all the way in front of DMDR's army. And because of that, it's like, it's just less efficient. I should probably do a short video just showing just how crazy more efficient it is to attack with two armies at once versus one at a time, but it is ridiculously more efficient to have the two armies there together. And so imagine if it was you, Tequila, and Arsenal all up there on the front line together. You could have stopped the attack right there, and then probably had enough units left over to sweep through, take out this turret, the bulwark, and just head in and destroy the base. The other thing to note is you've got this very open north. So what you can do is you can attack, or even around the side of this and down there. Yeah. So at this point, rather than sending those fiends to the side, just push forward. Get out to the front as soon as possible. You don't want this much artillery, probably, because a defensive and losing opponent, you only need, say, enough artillery to take out this one, and then the artillery is going to be useless, because then it's just about hunting down and finding the last commanders. So, and again, there's no point to building this extra fusion now, because again, you do have the eco lead. The enemy team's almost entirely done. Like, your team has about 7 times the eco of the enemy team. you should just be pushing it and trying to finish it as soon as possible at this point. We'll just speed it up, and because now we see everyone's actually putting units out on the front. And so, providing they all attack together, this will just be instantaneously overwhelmed. And it'll be GG for Bushman. Yeah. GG. Was that not last comm? No, that's not last comm. Here's the last comm. And no one knows where it is. Don't be this person. If you're gonna be last comm, go dig on something. Yeah, give the specs a last laugh at least. Don't just hide in your corner. And yeah, that's the other thing I do. It's like, once you've broken through the front Doomsday Machine, what you can do is you can stop unit production, because your back units aren't going to make it to the enemy commander by the time game's over. And what you just do is you throw down an air factory, start spamming air scouts, and then you can just find the commander so much faster rather than having to hunt for it or have the specs tell you where it is. You don't need to build any more units because they won't make it to the front line by the time the game's over. So just put down an air factory and find that comm a little faster. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and if you've got any replays you want me to review, get in contact with me on Discord or email. I believe that's the email is linked in the channel description somewhere. And my Discord tag is too. Yeah, so hope that was an informative review, and enjoy.